Today we're going to use what we learned on Friday about simplifying square roots to solve quadratic equations. So the first type is when we just have x squared. If you have x squared and x in the equation, you are going to have to use another method, like factoring or one of the methods that we're going to learn later this week. If you just have x squared, you want to get x squared by itself. So in this first equation, we need to get x squared by itself. We will start by adding 6 on both sides. That gives us 4x squared equals 48. And then we divide by 4 to get x squared equals 12. But we don't want to know what x squared is. We want to know what x is. To undo a square, we use a square root. Okay, off to the side, completely unrelated. Question for you. What is the square root of 9?
3.
Why is the square root of 9 3?
3 times 3.
Because 3 times 3 is 9. Is there another number that you can multiply by itself and still get positive 9?
9 times 1.
Multiply times itself. What about negative 3?
Negative 3, negative 3. No.
Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So the square root of 9 is actually positive 3 and negative 3. Now, on Friday, you were given problems that already had a square root written on them. If the square root is already there, you assume positive roots only. If you have to put a square root in the process of solving, you have to consider that there is a positive and a negative square root. So in front of that square root, write a plus minus. Okay, we need to simplify the square root of 12. How do we simplify the square root of 12? Square root of 4, square root of 3. So x equals positive or negative 2 times the square root of 3. So get x squared by itself, square root both sides, stick a plus minus in there, simplify the square roots, and then you're done. So up at the top it says isolate x squared. You may want to add then plus minus square root.
You've already done factoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there like
Okay, number 2. We need to get x squared by itself. So our first step is going to be to subtract 3. So negative 5x squared equals negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 5. And that fraction, we can't really simplify that, so it is 12 over 5. We need to square root both sides. Don't forget about the plus minus. Okay, typically I then take this off to the side. I know that the square root of 12 over 5, we can break that into the square root of 12 over the square root of 5. We just did the square root of 12. What is the simplified version of the square root of 12? 2 times the square root of 3. Can I leave it like that with a square root on the bottom? No, we cannot. We need to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 5. On the top, we have 2 times the square root of 15. On the bottom, what is the square root of 5 times the square root of 5?
25.
Square root of 25, which is 5. So then we go back to our problem. X equals positive or negative 2 times the square root of 15 over 5. Okay, try number 3 and number 4 on your own, and then I will get the answers up here in just a moment. Pause the video if you're at home. Try 3 and 4 on your own. Number 3, when we get x squared by itself, we end up with x squared equals 4. The square root of 4 with that plus minus is 2, so x is positive 2 or negative 2. if you were to put y equals 4x squared plus, let's see, or minus 16. If you were to put that into a graphing calculator, the parabola would cross the x-axis at +2 and at -2. All right, number 4, we end up getting x squared equals 12. We've already done the square root of 12. It's 2 times the square root of 3. I'm just kind of leaving this here for a moment to see if anybody notices my mistake. There's no plus minus. Oops, I deleted the 2. So x equals positive or negative 2 times the square root of 3. The next type is when we have a set of parentheses squared. Now, something that you should add in your notes. X plus b squared means x plus b times x plus b. That square means that you're multiplying the parentheses times themselves. So, your only methods for undoing the parentheses are to square root or to FOIL. And do you really want to FOIL on these problems? No. So think of the square as a padlock. That set of parentheses is a shed, and that square is a padlock on the shed. And you cannot touch the x or the 5 until the padlock has been removed. And you remove the padlock with a square root. So our first step is going to be to isolate the parentheses. Get everything away from the parentheses. How do we get rid of the 1/3 in front? Multiply by 3. So we have x plus 5 squared equals 21. We get rid of that padlock. We get rid of the square with a square root. Don't forget your plus minus. Off to the side, I would try to simplify the square root of 21. Can we split up the square root of 21? 16, no. 9, no. 4, nope. It is already simplified. So we have x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 21. We need to get x by itself. So what else do we need to do? Minus 5. Can you do the square root of 21 minus 5? No. So we're going to stick that minus 5 in front of the plus minus symbol. X equals -5 plus minus the square root of 21. Now, you remember that what we're actually doing is we're finding the x-intercepts, right? If you wanted to find exactly where this parabola crosses the x-axis, you would have to do 2 problems. The first problem would be -5 plus the square root of 21. Then you would do -5 minus the square root of 21. And those 2 problems would give you the 2 decimal answers where that parabola crosses the x-axis. All right, let's do number 6. What do we need to do first? Add 6. So 2 times the quantity x plus 5 squared equals 18. Then we would divide both sides by 2. To get rid of the square, we square root. What is the square root of 9? So x plus 5 equals positive or negative 3. Okay. This time, it's not stuck under a radical. You can do 3 minus 5. But we don't just have 3 here. We have positive 3 and we have negative 3. Some people find it helpful to rewrite this x plus 5 equals 3, x plus 5 equals -3, so that they can really see that there are 2 separate equations here, and we have to solve both of them. So what is positive 3 minus 5? -2. And what is -3 minus 5? negative 8. Our two solutions are negative 2 and negative 8. So this parabola would cross the x-axis at negative 2 and at negative 8. Okay, now we're not going to do number 7. I just want to give you a what-if situation. What if you ended up with x minus 2 equals plus minus 3 times the square root of 5? Okay, we know that we can't do square root of 5 plus 2, but this 3 is not under the radical. But what you must remember is there is multiplication between the 3 and the square root. Which comes first, multiplication or addition? Multiplication. So when you rewrite this, when you add 2 to both sides, you would need to do 2 plus or minus 3 times the square root of 5. You cannot combine, I did not change my thing. You cannot combine the 2 and the 3 together because the 3 is attached to the square root and multiplication trumps addition. All right, so that whole thing would be your answer.